Shall I educate you then?
What?
Well, seeing as you've never been here before and I'm something of a seasoned visitor, I can give you the guided tour, full of interesting observations and salient facts about the artwork on display.
More lectures?
I'm trying, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, tell me. Share your sculptorial wisdom.
Okay, well, firstly, that isn't a word, but putting that aside, this is Gallery 3, and it illustrates the role that international work had in inspiring Hepworth and her contemporaries, and in turn the impact that Hepworth had internationally on her contemporaries and those that will follow her.
This is lovely. Am I allowed to call it that?
Of course.
It's just that last time I got a whole speech.
All right.
This time though, I think it is the right place to use it. It really is lovely.
That's the face.
Huh?
The lit up face I was talking about. Maisie, I do believe a piece of sculpture has got to you. Feels nice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Suppose it's the equivalent of finding a book you can't put down.
I suppose it is.
So, what exactly does an MA in literature qualify you to do?
Well, that's part of the problem, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Everything and nothing. If you want someone to look at the portrayal of women in the Victorian novel, then I'm your person. I'm also excellent at analysing Shakespearean verse. As you might be noting, nothing terribly marketable in all that. I only took the course to buy myself some time. I kept hoping that somewhere along the line I'd come up with an idea of something I really wanted to do. And in the meantime, it gave me something to focus on. But then graduation day came and went and nothing.
Bit of an issue.
Well, yeah. So how did you do it?
What?
Choose teaching. When I left, you showed no inkling of wanting to go into anything like that.
When you left, I showed no inkling of wanting to do anything apart from spending as much time in bed as possible.
And playing Final Fantasy.
Ah, yeah. Those were the days.
Do you remember I used to call for you in the mornings with coffee and breakfast?
And make me get up and go for walks in the freezing cold.
I was only trying to stop you becoming a complete slob.
Which I pretended I hated.
But you secretly loved.
Unless you were in the throes of one of your disastrous relationships, in which case I got to stay in bed.
Or you were seeing one of those horrible girls.
They weren't all horrible.
You didn't see them in quite the same way as I did.
Well, were you ever jealous?
Of girls with too much eyeliner and not enough sense to see through you?
Yeah.
No. We always said that we would never get involved like that. That friendship was more important. I liked that whatever happened with other people, we were constant. Were you?
Jealous?
Yeah.
Not that you went out with other people, but I didn't like that you wanted to spend time with them rather than me. Especially when most of them were idiots.
They weren't that bad.
You didn't see them in quite the same way I did. Anyway, it didn't matter in the end, did it?
So how did you do it?
What?
Make it into teaching?
That would be you changing the subject, Ben.
Please.
There's nothing dramatic, no epiphany. It was more like stepping stones. One thing led on to another, and I took the opportunities as they came up.
And it all worked out?
Something like that.
Do you still see any of the old lot? People from sixth form?
Yeah, some of them. Everyone's moved on though, so not that often. I mean, some of them are married, some have got kids, some moved away. Chris, he emigrated to Australia last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and we always thought that he'd still be living with his parents in his 50s.
Yeah.
You?
What?
Do you still see anyone?
You know I don't.
Well, I didn't want to presume. I just thought you might have seen Poppy, because I know you were close.
No, it was one of the conditions.
Conditions?
When I went. You said earlier that it was a choice, but it's important that you know it wasn't a choice I made. Other people made it for me.
I find that hard to believe. You were one of the strongest people I knew. Nobody ever made you do anything you didn't want to.
Well, things changed. While you were on holiday, things changed. They got complicated, and because of that, things happened that weren't necessarily... They weren't the decisions that I would have... There were things that played a part in what was going on.
If you don't want to tell me, then you don't have to.
I do.
In which case, you're going to have to use some definitive words that tell me what you're going on about.
I'm trying.
Well, it can't be that hard.
It's just I don't know where to start.
Let me help you then. Let me start it.
Okay.
It's summer 2006.
Late summer, and please try to resist the temptation to be utterly patronising.
Yes, and I promise I'll try. You and I have just finished further education. I've achieved a mediocre as expected in my A-levels, and you...
Have failed horribly.
Let me stop you right there, because I remember saying more than once at the time, you did better than I did.
But not good enough.
Well, no, not good enough to get into Cambridge.
Which was all I wanted to do.
So, together, we both hatched a plan to take a year out. I defer my place at university, mainly because I was only going because you were, and I didn't see much point in spending a year in Wakefield on my own. And together, we hatch a plan of working and travelling and seeing all my bands on my must-see before I or they die list. And generally, we're having a brilliant time. So far, so good.
At which point you went away.
At which point I was obliged to accompany my family on the long-awaited, well, by them anyway, final family holiday.
Yeah.
So, now I'll tell you what I know of what happened next. Although the problem is, Maisie, as you'll soon see, it's not much. I arrive home, and I call you from the airport, but there's no response. And I don't worry about that because, you know, it's early, and you've always got your phone on silent.
This is awful.
And once I get back, I try and call you again, no response, so I call round to where you live. Or more accurately, where you used to live, because when I arrive, there's essentially nothing left of you or your family.
We moved 3 days after you went away.
That bit I did find out, although all anyone knew was that you'd gone to London, and as I soon discovered, London is a pretty big place to try and find someone who doesn't want to be found.
It wasn't like that.
No, believe me, Maisie, that's exactly what happened. From my side of the story anyway, it was like I was in a BBC detective series. I kept thinking to myself, people don't really disappear. Not in real life, not really. But apparently they do. Apparently you did.
But it wasn't that I didn't want to be found.
Then tell me what I'm missing, Maisie. Tell me what I didn't see.
I will.
Okay.
Just not yet. I promise that before we leave you'll know. I just need a bit more time.
Well, I suppose I've managed this long without knowing, so won't make much difference.
Thank you.
Shall I diffuse the tension?
Please.
Okay, so come look at this one.
Okay.
So,
Yeah?
do you like it?
I...
Don't say it.
But...
Maisie, resist, don't say it.
I don't get it.
Ah!
Well, I don't. It's not good. It just leaves me cold.
Cold.
Well, maybe not cold, but not warm.
And do you think that's what Hepworth was trying to achieve when she was creating this? When she decided to share it with others? When she was in her studio and she was naming it Pierced Hemisphere, and she's thinking, I do hope one day this makes Maisie Thornton warm.
Probably not. So what's your point?
I just think that whether it really touches you or not, just by being open to it, something's added.
Added to what?
To the things that you've seen, and the things you've talked about, the things you've thought about, the impressions of things in your memory. That's what makes life richer.
That's a nice thought.
But you're not convinced?
Not entirely.
I give up.
Don't, Jed.
So why are you going back so soon?
I've got a job interview tomorrow afternoon.
So you do have something to go back for?
Yeah. It's just not for anything that I really want to do.
What is it for?
For working for a charity, promoting their work.
And it's paid?
Yeah.
Well, then that's a start, isn't it? A stepping stone?
Yeah, I suppose. I just want to be excited about something. Well, what's that for?
Nothing.
It was.
You're in a gallery full of pieces of art, and you couldn't look less inspired. Maybe it's not the fault of the job that you're not excited about it.
Cheers. The amount of times I've picked you up when you've been rock bottom and that's what you give me.
Not so much recently.
Right.
Alright, okay, I'll try be more helpful. I could ask you questions, make sure you've got some good answers.
Really?
How much preparation have you done?
Enough. Well, some. Not much.
So you've given up on it already?
Not given up.
This is new. This despondency, I've not seen this in you before.
Yeah, it's part of...
The thing that you don't know how to tell me about.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me just about that bit?
What?
I mean, rather than trying to condense everything into a grand explanation, just tell me about the bit that's making you despondent.
It was failing that did it.
You didn't fail. I'm sorry. Carry on.
Not getting into Cambridge was the first thing I hadn't achieved. Before that, everything else pretty much fell into my hands. GCSEs, music exams, dance exams, driving test. So, because that success suddenly stopped, it felt like my whole world shifted. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's genuinely what it felt like. I didn't recognise it anymore.
Right.
And so...
Yeah.
Well, that's it for that part, I suppose. It just means that I find motivation harder because I feel like I'm almost guaranteed to fail. Hence the lack of preparation for the job interview.
That's rubbish.
Well, it's how I feel.
No, I was being empathetic. I meant, it must be rubbish.
It is.
We can move on if you want to.
Okay.
Okay.